someone left. Oh, well, you know what? The show must go on. There's still people watching. And there's going to be a VOD of this, don't worry. First, before anything else, let's check our stats. Now, you've noticed that we didn't actually get to choose our class. The good news is that my character chose Twin Blade, which is the best main character class you could possibly ask for. And this is because he's the most versatile. You get gear that you can customize to change his purpose, and that's going to be very important because there'll be times when we can't choose what party we have. For now, we can't do much with that, but that's going to change pretty soon. Anyway, my attack is 5, her attack is 4, because actually, it's because I gotten a shiny new weapon and she hasn't. But anyway, like our attack is 4, her defense is, yeah, you get the idea. So let's see what happens when I use these items. These imitate buff spells. Which is why the very first thing I did was to buy some of these. And my attack is doubled, and her attack is more than doubled. Alright. So we should be okay to get through those critical first few battles and level ourselves up. Because levels are supremely important. Gear does affect what we can do, and items are, of course, also extremely useful, but levels play a large part of what we can tackle at all. Now, those buff items increase your stats by a flat amount, which would imply that their effectiveness drops off as you go through the game. But that's actually not the case. They are more powerful than usual at the very start. However, damage works in a really weird way in this game. Anyway, I'm not going to bother data draining for a little while because I really need the experience. Data drain gets you things that are very important, however it also reduces the enemy level to 0. Not 1, 0. And turns them into a version of the monster that you cannot find any other way. Well, anyway, the way damage works. It's not something where your attack power determines your outgoing damage and then their defense reduces it somewhat. Like in Fire Emblem, if your attack is 5 and their defense is 3, you do 7 damage. That is not even close to how it works in this game. Instead, as far as I can tell, if your attack is better than defense, each small increase past their defense scales extremely fast. Like, of course, Orca did over 5,000 damage per hit, but even in this particular disc of the game, when we get towards the end and we hit like a level 1 or 2 magical goblin with a normal attack, we're gonna do 4 digits as well. I wish I knew the formula because I love learning that sort of thing. The in-depth game mechanics, I love it, and I can't find it anywhere. Also, hello. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it. And don't worry about the stuff that you missed. I'm going to make sure that I transfer the VOD to YouTube. So, what we're looking for in this dungeon is a big part of the main character's versatility. And it's all in this secret bonus thing that you can only learn by looking at additional content, which is I don't even know what to say about it. So let's talk a little bit about basics. Those buff items that I've bought make us overpowered, and you may have noticed that buffs last a really long time. These are not 60 seconds buffs here. So, SP, the points which fuel your skills. Right now, they always refuel at 1 per tick. Uh-oh. Okay, good. Anyway, 1 per tick. And that's going to change as my max skill points increase. Max skill points are the only stat which affect how fast you regenerate skill points. Your magic attack or none of your other stats affected. Oh, now I know what I was doing. Also, healing spells, completely fixed. It doesn't matter what your stats are for that either. And the people that you bring with your party will automatically say things as you perform actions. Like, they'll thank you for healing or buffing them. And I'm actually okay with this. It doesn't break immersion for me at all because I suspect... Well, you've played these games, and especially in Monster Hunter, you can actually tell the game to put up a set text response when something happens. And I would not be surprised at all if you could do that in this game too. So, treasure room. Dungeons often have rooms with not only treasure chests, but also breakable things like this. And they give you very useful recovery stuff. They can also give you elemental defense stuff, which is needed for quite a few things. And the ratio of what these rooms give, it depends on the field that you're in. And I don't know what exactly affects it, but one field might have a dungeon which gives a whole lot of health drinks, another gives a lot of antidotes, and another gives a lot of element stuff. And this is especially important because there are certain things that we want to farm like crazy, and I promise to myself that I want to do most of it off camera because there's already enough tedious stuff in the game. Like, it took us an hour to get into our first dungeon. Seriously.
Invisible egg.
That egg thing is grunty food. We don't need to know anything about that right now except that we should pick it up. Oh, another important thing about these pot things, which is vital for farming, when you leave and then go back into a room, they're all back and they drop stuff again. Obviously, I'm not going to do a whole lot of that right now because, well, first of all, I don't want to be boring in the stream, and secondly, our buff items, while long-lasting, are not unlimited. If I had to pick between one of the two buffs right at the start of the game, I'd say accuracy. Because we start at level 1 and these enemies clearly are not, which means that their evasion will reduce our damage more than their defense. And evasion and defense tend to go hand in hand in this game. This applies to players as well as monsters. For example, the physically tankiest class, the Heavy Axeman, has very high physical defense and also very high physical evade. It's a function of the armor that they use, and it's important to remember because if an enemy that you're facing has high evade for your attacks, chances are their defenses are also high when you do hit, and it's a lot better to just switch from physical to magic or vice versa. That was a lot of talking, wasn't it? Oh right, you can talk to party members and even trade with them, but we're not going to deal with that yet. I will say, though, that the ability to trade with and gift things to party members is one of the extremely important things in the game. There are a lot of those, but bear with me. The people you party with are kind of scrubs. The game is pretty clear... I'm sorry. It's pretty clear that other people who you're friended with will play the game and level up while you're doing other stuff. However, they never get new gear for themselves. That's up to you. You have to either find or trade for gear that's suitable for the people that you play with and give it to them. Which makes it doubly important that you pick up everything you possibly can, trade for every good piece of gear you can find used by another NPC or whatever. Oh, well, anyway. Every type of gear has to be collected if you want to succeed at this game. That's the short of it. Now, I feel a little weird about the sort of stylized presentation. I mean, the game is saying in its own way that, yes, this is extremely meta, it's a game within a game, and by the way, my spell missed, that is a thing that can happen, it's annoying, and also, let's talk about something else. My character just died because I wasn't paying attention. You can tell other people to use first aid, and they have their own item stocks. They will resurrect you. You can probably guess about how important that is. You want to use this sparingly, though, because, like your item stock, theirs is not unlimited. Also, when you tell someone to do first aid, they will do nothing else for the remainder of the battle, so it's really best to not use that if you can avoid it. And dying is, of course, bad, but for extra reasons. One is that you lose any buffs on you, and if you're using items to keep buffs up, well, you can guess why that's a tricky thing to deal with. Whoa! You see that number? Remember when I talked about how... I'm sorry, remember what I said about damage scaling? That's a good example. That's enough to overkill it like 5 times over. And I'm not even a magic specialist character, which can... And I'm using no specialist magic gear. Which just shows how weak certain enemies can be to certain attacks if you're paying attention.
Invisible egg.
Yep, you're invisible, alright. Anyway. All of the stuff that we're collecting here is going to be useful later. I'm kind of at a bit of a loss because we're not collecting much junk gear. We're going to need that to trade for decent gear, but well, I'll figure things out, don't worry. So that's one of the 2 special items we're getting here. It has a negative attack and defense, though good accuracy. Now, weakening yourself does not seem very useful, and for a large portion of the game it's not. Excuse me. But there will be a few edge cases where you might want to do that. For example, as I said, data draining enemies is often important for collecting things that you cannot get in other ways. And if you're so strong that you one-shot the enemy, well, you can't really do that. That's about the only reason I can think of, though. That's a death effect. Well, you saw how much damage it did. So it was definitely worth using that little, I wouldn't say hidden mechanic or obscure mechanic, but it definitely does not completely explain how it works. I like that there are hints about it in the in-universe message board. Well, that's something I can definitely trade to someone. I really feel like I want to explain why Black Rose was a super newbie in that first combat encounter, but I mean, that is giving something away, and I feel like it's, even though it's all fiction, I feel like it's a little disrespectful to say so. Ooh, this is a pretty big side dungeon, though. The good news is that we've gotten plenty of experience, and if you've been watching closely, I'm sure you noticed, but the experience you get is related to the level of the enemy compared to your level in a very linear way. Like, it decreases for roughly 10 points per level until you get to the extreme distances. Then it can increase or decrease by different numbers, but anyway, if you're getting more than, say, 70, then you're definitely underleveled. And this is what we're here for. That first item that we got? Aha! Ha! Okay. That is the key to our versatility, as I said. Let's check how our stats change. Yeah. So, it increases magical stats by a gigantic amount. To give you an idea, 10 magical attack is what a magical Wavemaster weapon would give you if it's rare and you get it at the end of this particular game, or this disc if you want to put it that way. And then you can also equip weapons which increase your magic defense as well. In fact, all Twin Blade weapons increase magic just a little bit, and there are some that are more specialized. Essentially, I can use that to change my build into a magic build. And I cannot overstate how handy this is. Not just because it allows me more freedom with my party composition, but also throughout the game, you can find or buy spell scrolls. You cannot tell party members to use your spell scrolls for you. The only way to use them is using your own stats. So the ability to tweak your stats towards magic like that is the best thing. It's just great. And you might be tempted to give it to a spellcaster ally of yours, because it is light armor, and giving more magic like that to a magic casting ally seems great. However, as I said before, you can't always control who goes with you, and there are many dungeons that are going to restrict that a lot. So you need the main character to be able to handle anything, and that secret bonus content that I just got is central to that. Once again, I did a lot of talking for a fairly simple concept, but I hope you can understand my reasoning here. Also, thanks for bearing with me for this long. So, how was your day? So let's equip one of these. Oh, actually, I can't do anything with it right this second, and the reason is with your default armor. Yeah, that's exactly correct. That's a good way to put it, Blue Robin. So, for the really low level gear, the spells that you can cast are attached to your chest armor for this class. And the magic boosting armor does not actually have a built-in attack spell. So you're going to have to do a little bit more work and find another piece of gear that has an attack spell attached to it. Fortunately, this is not actually that hard. It only takes a little bit of trading or searching to find a piece of gear that allows you to cast an offense spell. And that is actually not an awful piece of armor for this level. It's definitely better than what Black Rose has, because she has the worst gear possible, like her starting gear. Because like me, she just started the game. So let's give her this.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thanks.
Right. Now, Fortune Wire, the trap disarming thing, does cost 10 gold, but there is no possible result that you can get from a trap chest that's worth less than that. And there's some that's worth a fair deal more, especially the SP restoring items. You can get those for trap chests, and they are a huge money saver if you do. Although I won't say no to gear. I'm gonna need to trade a lot. Oh, important thing about gear levels. A character can equip anything of their weight class or lighter. Which is, by the way, why Orca could cast that heal everyone in the party to full spell. He was actually using a high-level light armor headgear. Anyway, that's it for this dungeon, I think. I may be missing a portal. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Blue Robin. I hope other people's days went well. We are done with that dungeon. I want to go through at least one more. At least. Preferably two. But before I do that, we have stuff to trade and sell. By the way, I love how the characters that you bring with you will run around town doing stuff when you come back from a dungeon. And she has the right idea, saving is the first thing that you do. Right, so, let's see now a little bit about trading. As you can see, all of the people you talk to in town are, well, character classes. And, let's see... like this. This is what I'm talking about. This is a piece of medium armor that allows me to cast an attack spell. So I definitely want that. And if I want that, it's best to trade back armor that this person can use. That approved thing is an indication of how valuable your current offers are. If it's at 3 stars, you can usually just trade low value stuff like, I don't know, scrolls or health items or that sort of thing. Anyway. Oh, my bad. It seems that there's a little bit more to it than I thought. That's the problem, because this is actually kind of high level for where I am in the game, but definitely worthwhile, whatever I have to trade for it. There we go. So, I now have everything I need to switch to a magic build. A very, kind of a shoddy, slap together magic build, but... Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Lots of games love tarots. Well, throughout the history of video games, now that I think about it, I remember stuff like Ogre Battle, there's Persona, of course, and the only way to get gold, by the way, is to sell your stuff. I try to avoid selling gear, especially early on. Selling treasure items is fine, though. And before I forget, I want to store the stuff that I don't want to lose, but cannot use yet, like that rusty nail thing. Yep, you have a bank, and you can only carry 40 different items at once, and this is on purpose, because as I mentioned near the start, consumable items are how you survive in this game. If you know how they work and use them carefully with an understanding of the game, it makes the game. I'm just gonna say it makes the game possible. Because even though the game is definitely cuddly, especially for a .hack setting, there is some pretty punishing stuff. And the important thing about the item limit is that this counts both your gear and your consumables and anything else. And the reason this is important is that having a large collection of gear also expands the different kinds of skills that you can use, because gear is attached to skills, or vice versa. So, what do I want? Oh. Well, I don't actually need new armor just yet. I'm actually not in great need of anything here, but I will. Right now I just want gear for myself and for Black Rose. Later on I'll want light gear stuff as well. And I haven't met anyone like this yet, but okay. I especially want to find shoes that are medium armor. And the reason for that is that they have buff skills attached to them. Now, before I interrupted myself, there are some specialized traders here. They will trade for secret stuff or for elemental defense stuff that you can only find in particular dungeons. And some of them will trade for golden or silver axes. Oh, I love this guy. Yeah. I love that they decide to include someone who's running on a, I don't know, a dial-up modem or something. You can trade with them just fine, though. Oh. New sword for Black Rose? Sure. I wasn't even paying attention to what class you were, so I should probably check that right now. You are a Wave Master, so I definitely want to trade you light armor, and I don't think I have a staff, but anyway. The levels of gear are a little bit strange in this game. The listed levels don't say anything about who can equip them. A level 1 character can equip a level 50 piece of gear. It's just more like relative power, and when comparing the two, if you want to make them equivalent, you just multiply the weapon level by 2 or divide the armor level by 2 or whatever. This is actually not a bad trade at all, and the kind of trade that no actual player would do in a real MMO, but it's helpful for me. Yeah, so the game doesn't track whether you're trading more than one of a piece of gear, and of course you can't use both at once. Having two is completely useless, but nah, it just looks at the gold value and whether or not the person you're trading to can use it. I try to rationalize it like, well, maybe they want to experiment with gear upgrades and multiple copies are helpful or something. That's another specialized trader. And it's also helpful to talk to as many NPCs as you can and offer to trade, even if you don't actually trade with them, because that logs them in with the people that you've talked with, and later on we're actually going to get a way to track people that we've talked with, and that's going to be nice, because for specific trades well, if that's the case, the Blue